The dawn was a muted haze as Mia Ravenscroft's carriage trundled up the overgrown driveway of Ravenscroft House. Each bump and creak of the ancient vehicle seemed to echo the sombre mood of the decaying manor that awaited her. The grand Victorian home, with its once majestic facade now shrouded in ivy and neglect, loomed ahead like a dark sentinel of forgotten times. Mia, her auburn hair tied back and her eyes scanning the horizon, felt a chill despite the autumn warmth. She was used to dusty archives and musty libraries, but the sight before her was a different kind of historical enigma, a place she hoped would provide the material for her next book. As the carriage came to a halt, Mia's gaze fell upon the wrought iron gate, its intricate patterns barely visible through the layers of rust and grime. She stepped out, her boots crunching on the gravel, and approached the heavy wooden door of the manor, where she would begin her journey into the heart of darkness. The first night in Ravenscroft House was uneventful, save for the peculiar sounds that seemed to emanate from the walls, the creaks and groans of a structure settling into its age. Mia dismissed them as natural, her mind already diving into research on the house's history. However, as she rose early the next morning, she noticed something peculiar. Muddy footprints trailing from the gate to her front door. The prints were clear, but inexplicably vanished by noon, leaving no trace behind. The discovery was unnerving, but Mia, driven by her scholarly curiosity, chalked it up to local mischief or perhaps an overactive imagination. Yet, each subsequent night, the footprints reappeared, growing more pronounced and disturbing. By the fourth night, they began appearing inside the house, leading from the entrance hall to the drawing room, and then, unexpectedly, stopping in the middle of the floor. Determined to uncover the truth, Mia began to delve into the manor's history. Her research revealed a troubling account from a century ago. A young woman named Eliza Blackwood had vanished under mysterious circumstances. According to local law, Eliza had been a beautiful and reclusive woman who had lived in the manor before it fell into disrepair. Her disappearance was never solved, and whispers of her ghost haunting the estate had persisted ever since. Mia visited the local library and spoke with the village historian, Mr. Edmund Hargrove, a gaunt man with a knowing gaze. Eliza Blackwood, he said in a hushed tone, was rumoured to be a victim of betrayal. Some say she was engaged to a man who disappeared on the night of their engagement. Others claim she was involved in dark rituals. Either way, her spirit is said to be restless. As the days turned to weeks, the haunting escalated. The muddy footprints became more erratic, leading to rooms Mia hadn't yet explored. Objects in the manor began to move on their own. Books falling from shelves, the sound of a distant weeping filling the air. One night, Mia awoke to find the prints leading directly to her bedroom, the footprints stopping at the foot of her bed. The sensation of being watched was palpable, and Mia's sleep was plagued with dreams of a woman in a tattered wedding dress, her eyes hollow and pleading. Desperate for answers, Mia ventured into the overgrown garden, searching for any clues about Eliza's fate. There, hidden beneath a crumbling stone statue, she discovered an old diary. The diary, written in a delicate hand, revealed Eliza's desperate plea for help. Eliza had been betrayed by her fiancé, who had been involved in a dark cult. The cult had performed a ritual that bound Eliza's spirit to the manor, condemning her to wander endlessly, seeking retribution for her wrongful death. The diary also revealed a hidden room within the manor's cellar, accessible only through a concealed door behind a bookcase. Mia, guided by the diary's clues, found the room. A small chamber filled with old arcane symbols and artifacts. In the center of the room was a broken mirror, its shards reflecting the dim light of Mia's lantern. On the wall Scratched in desperation were the words, "Help me break the chains." Armed with the knowledge from the diary, Mia performed a ritual described within its pages, hoping to appease Eliza's spirit. As she recited the ancient words and placed the symbolic offerings, the manor was engulfed in a supernatural storm. The walls trembled, and a chilling wind howled through the corridors. Eliza's spirit manifested before Mia, an apparition of sorrow and rage. The confrontation was intense. Eliza's ghost, bound by the pain of betrayal and death, reached out to Mia with ghostly fingers. Mia, summoning her courage, spoke to the spirit, acknowledging Eliza's suffering and promising to tell her story. The spirit's rage began to wane as Mia's words reached her. With Eliza's spirit finally at peace, the footprints ceased. The manor's oppressive atmosphere lifted, and Mia was left with a sense of profound relief. She completed her book, Footsteps of the Forsaken, detailing the tragic history of Ravenscroft House and the haunting of Eliza Blackwood. The story of the cursed footprints and the restless spirit became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the consequences of betrayal and the power of acknowledging the past. As Mia looked out over the now serene landscape, she knew that Ravenscroft House, though forever marked by its dark history, had found a semblance of peace. The echoes of the past had finally been laid to rest. Samuel Evans had always found solace in isolation. The cabin he had chosen, nestled deep in the forest, was his refuge from the world, a place where he could immerse himself in his writing without distraction. As he arrived, the storm clouds gathered ominously above, casting a shadow over the landscape. The wind howled through the trees, and the rain began to fall in heavy, relentless sheets. Samuel, unfazed, unloaded his belongings and settled into the cabin, determined to complete his novel. The storm raged through the night, its fury a backdrop to Samuel's focused typing. But as he took a break to fetch more firewood, he noticed something alarming. Muddy footprints leading from the edge of the forest to his cabin's doorstep. The footprints were fresh and large, their origin obscured by the dense underbrush. Samuel, uneasy but rational, locked the doors and windows, attributing the prints to a curious animal or a passing traveller. As the nights progressed, the footprints reappeared each morning, always vanishing by noon. They began appearing inside the cabin, moving from the entryway to the kitchen and eventually leading to Samuel's bedroom. Despite his precautions, Samuel could not find any logical explanation for the tracks. His sense of safety eroded, replaced by a gnawing fear. Determined to understand what was happening, Samuel ventured into the nearby town to seek information about the local law. The townspeople were reticent, their eyes darting nervously as he inquired about any strange occurrences in the woods. Eventually, Samuel spoke to a reclusive historian named Ada Harper, who reluctantly shared the story of the Watcher, a spirit bound to the forest, known for stalking and terrorizing those who were alone. The Watcher, Ada explained, is a spirit of ancient malice. It feeds on the fear of those who isolate themselves. It has been said that those who encounter it are never the same again, driven to madness or worse. Back at the cabin, Samuel's fears grew as the footprints grew bolder. Objects in the cabin began moving on their own, books falling off shelves, lights flickering, and an icy draft sweeping through despite the windows being sealed. The sense of being watched was ever present, and Samuel began to experience vivid nightmares of a shadowy figure lurking in the woods. His attempts to fortify the cabin and remain vigilant only seemed to escalate the haunting. Each night, the footprints grew closer, their presence more menacing. Samuel's mental state deteriorated as he struggled to maintain his composure, his isolation now a torment rather than a sanctuary. Samuel's desperation led him to re-examine Ada's accounts and the old local legends. He discovered an old, tattered book in the town's archives that detailed ancient rituals to protect oneself from malevolent spirits. The book spoke of a protective circle that could be used to ward off spirits and create a barrier between the living and the supernatural. Samuel followed the instructions meticulously, preparing the ritual in the cabin's living room. As he began the incantations and placed the protective symbols, the cabin was engulfed in a whirlwind of supernatural energy. The Watcher's presence grew more tangible, its dark, oppressive form manifesting in the shadows. The confrontation with the Watcher was a harrowing experience. The spirit, manifesting as a swirling mass of darkness and malice, attempted to breach the protective circle Samuel had drawn. The air was thick with an icy chill, and the sound of distant, tormented whispers filled the cabin. Samuel, driven by sheer willpower, continued the ritual, his voice steady despite the terror. In a climactic moment of intense fear and resolve, Samuel completed the ritual, his words echoing through the cabin. The Watcher's form wavered and dissipated, its presence banished from the cabin. The storm outside gradually subsided, and the cabin's oppressive atmosphere lifted. With the Watcher gone, Samuel felt a profound sense of relief. The footprints ceased, and the cabin's eerie atmosphere gave way to a newfound peace. Samuel completed his novel, drawing from his harrowing experience for inspiration. The story of the Watcher and the cursed forest became a testament to the dangers of isolation and the power of confronting one's fears. As he left the cabin behind, Samuel knew that while he had faced the darkness, the forest and its secrets would remain forever entwined in his memory. The cabin, now a symbol of both terror and triumph, stood as a reminder of the unseen intruder that had tested his resolve. Emily Rodriguez was brimming with excitement as she moved into her new apartment in the historic building on Maple Street. The spacious rooms and charming details of the old building seemed like the perfect setting for her new start in the city. She unpacked her belongings with enthusiasm, admiring the high ceilings and antique features that spoke of a bygone era. The first night passed peacefully, but as Emily settled into her new routine, she began to notice something peculiar. Dusty footprints appeared in the hallway outside her apartment, their small size puzzling since there were no children in the building. Emily chalked it up to an odd quirk of the old building and continued with her life. As days turned into weeks, the footprints persisted, becoming more frequent and more pronounced. Emily's curiosity turned to unease when she noticed the footprints appearing inside her apartment, leading from the front door to the living room and sometimes even to her bedroom. Despite her attempts to clean them and keep the apartment secure, the footprints reappeared each morning. Determined to find an explanation, Emily began to research the building's history. She learned that the building had once been an orphanage, where a devastating fire had claimed the lives of many children. The discovery sent a chill down her spine, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the spirits of these lost children were reaching out to her. Emily sought out the building's caretaker, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had lived in the neighborhood for decades. Mrs. Thompson reluctantly confirmed the tragic history of the orphanage and shared stories of the fire and the lost children. She spoke of eerie occurrences in the building's past, hinting that the spirits of the children had never found peace. Desperate for answers, Emily visited the local library and dug through old newspapers and records. She uncovered more details about the fire and the orphanage's history, revealing a heartbreaking tale of neglect and loss. The more she learned, the more she understood that the spirits were seeking something from her: acknowledgement and closure. The haunting grew more intense as the footprints became more erratic, appearing in increasingly unsettling patterns. Emily began to hear faint, ghostly whispers in the dead of night, and the temperature in her apartment would drop inexplicably. The spirits seemed to be communicating their distress, their sorrow palpable in the air. One night, Emily awoke to find a group of spectral children gathered around her bed, their expressions filled with sadness and longing. She could hear their soft, mournful voices calling for help. The encounter left her shaken, but also more determined to find a way to help them. Emily's research led her to a local historian, Dr. Jacobson, who specialized in the paranormal. He provided her with guidance on how to perform a ritual to appease restless spirits. The ritual involved creating a memorial for the children and acknowledging their suffering. Emily meticulously prepared the ritual, gathering items that represented the children's lost lives, old toys, drawings, and candles. She set up a small memorial in her apartment, along with a letter expressing her sorrow and offering apologies for the neglect they had endured. The night of the ritual was tense and fraught with anticipation. Emily performed the ceremony with reverence, her heart pounding as she recited the words and placed the items on the makeshift altar. The atmosphere in the apartment grew heavy, and the air was thick with an otherworldly presence. As she completed the ritual, the temperature in the apartment began to stabilize, and the whispers grew quieter. The footprints slowly ceased, and the oppressive feeling of being watched began to lift. Emily felt a profound sense of relief as she completed the final part of the ritual, hoping it would bring peace to the troubled spirits. In the days following the ritual, Emily noticed a change in the atmosphere of her apartment. The haunting footprints disappeared, and the whispers faded into silence. The apartment felt lighter, and the sense of dread that had once pervaded her home was gone. Emily found solace in knowing that she had done her best to acknowledge and address the spirit's sorrow. She continued her life in the apartment, now a place of quiet reflection rather than fear. The memory of the lost children remained with her, a poignant reminder of the past and the importance of finding closure for those who are lost.